Alexander McKay.
Jason Rigby. Starting
I'm excited.
It off with singing every time.
I know. I always end up doing that. We've got the Palo Alto wood burning.
Palo Alto.
Palo Alto, yeah,
Silicon
from
Valley.
California.
You got the Silicon Valley stuff.
Silicon
Palo
Valley.
Santo.
Hey, is there a Palo Santo city?
That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Palo Alto. We've got the absolute world's best incense burning right now because it comes from Palo Alto.
We've had the best tech giants come together to figure out how to burn incense the best way possible.
Yeah, it's the most efficient.
Yeah, it's the most efficient way to burn an incense.
Because that's what we're all about. Cogs and wheels and efficiency.
Nothing else in life matters.
Corporate.
Who cares about the human being?
Corporate. And I want to talk about that just real quick before we get into what constitutes mythology in this article is one of our sponsors, Turtle.co.
You calling us corporate?
You know, I'm just saying we have a big 7, which
Yes,
is where we donate to, and one is government and corporate transparency. Mm-hmm. Can you talk really quickly a little bit about that and why it's so important for all of our listeners to sign up at Turtle.co for free?
Yeah, guys, it's super important to sign up at Turtle.co because if you're looking to financially empower yourself through the value of data that all of these Palo Alto big tech companies are currently working with, right? They recognize the value. We want you to recognize that value. And in recognizing it, in receiving that value from signing up on Turtle, getting started on it, you have the ability to share your earnings towards these charitable organizations, these activism groups that are actively working towards things like government and corporate transparency.
And it doesn't cost you anything. You're already sharing the data.
Cost you zilch.
You might as well be able to donate and give the data that you're already sharing.
Yeah, and donate their earnings.
It just takes a little bit of time to sign up and do some data packets and
work with it.
NFTs.
It's for your benefit and it's also for the world's benefit at the same time. So let's come together collaboratively and bring this world to a better light than it's currently in.
Yeah, and I want to shout out this article that we talked about. This is part 2. Rami Gabriel. He's an associate professor of psychology and founding fellow at the research group in mind science and culture at Columbia College, Chicago. He has several books. He has one called A Suspicious Science: The Uses of Psychology. And Why I Buy, Self-Taste and Consumer Society in America. Ugh. And he's a co-author of The Emotional Mind, Effective Roots of Culture and Cognition. So this
COG.
COG. This dude is definitely an expert. We'd love to have him on the show. Shout out to him. And I just want to make sure when we're using material, we're talking, we always like to give credit where credit is due.
Credit where credit's due.
Yeah. We don't want to be those fraud gurus.
No guru free over here.
No gurus here. We're all equal.
I know we're burning incense, but we're not walking around in white robes or anything like that.
Yeah. Have you seen that? It's on cinema. I think it's on HBO Max.
What?
That, and I don't want to get into it, but it's really, really good about the people that killed themselves thinking that the alien ship. Yeah, it's a really good documentary if anybody hasn't seen it. It shows you how fearful we should be of cults and cult leaders.
Yeah. Or
religion in general.
Just be aware.
Yeah. So what constitutes a mythology? So we're not in the myths, but in mythology.
Yeah, tell me.
It is and I know you hate the word belief, but I think he's using it right because a belief could be, a belief could be false.
Yeah.
But he says it's an organized canon. I love that word, of beliefs that explains the state of the world. And it also delivers an origin story, such as the Hindu laws of Manu or the biblical creation story, that creates a setting for how we experience the world. In fact, for Helod, all myths provide an explanation of the world by virtue of giving an account of where things came from. So, we look at, I know the biblical creation really well in Genesis. So we look at that, and that kind of gives us a starting point, or, that God created the heavens and the earth, and the Holy Spirit moved upon, the Spirit moved and in that Spirit. And so we can, if we look at it as a myth, we can say, oh, okay, creation moved, create this eternal all-knowing moved upon this planet, and it began to go from first density to second density, third density as it began to evolve. And we can see that, in the scriptures if we interpret it, as a myth.
Yeah. Not
as reality.
Yeah.
But as a myth. So let's make sure everybody understands the word belief.
When you thanks.
No, I think it's important because he's going to use this word a lot.
He's going to use this word a lot. The idea of belief. You weren't there when the origins of the universe happened, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty obvious fact. So what do you have to do? You have to listen and believe.
Yes.
Accept some sort of idea, not that it's necessarily the truth, but accept something from someone else, someone telling you how the world or nature or creation is.
Science is a belief.
Science is a belief, right?
The Big Bang is a belief.
All a belief, right? Most of scientific theory is belief. So when you look for truth, that is the polar opposite of belief. Belief is nothing of you thinking for yourself. It does not ask you to truly consider, to ruminate, to think things through.
Right.
The belief is just saying, here are the facts. You need to now live by this thing that I am telling you as an outside party rather than you internally coming to the sense for yourself. Is that clear?
Yeah, and I like that these myths, these origin stories, kind of give an account of where things came from. So, yeah, I know we have to be careful because you'll have people that these fundamentalists that will take it and believe every word and believe it's 100%. But I like the idea that I can go into the Hindu scriptures, I can go into the Quran, I can go into the Bible, and there's this oneness about how creation worked.
Correct. Yeah. There's a deep undertone.
Because they're all saying the same thing.
They're all saying the same thing.
That creation, that because science says ignore all those spiritual sides of things. We had chemicals that came. If you're smart, then you should know that chemicals and then they started going boom, 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 and then these atoms, and the next thing you know, we had, slowly over billions and billions of years, we had
mitosis and evolution.
Yeah.
Protozoa and all that other stuff, right?
But it leaves out. There's no identity.
No. What do you identify with? It's telling you to be nihilistic.
Mm-hmm.
Then what's the value of life at that point?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so, although that these other stories may have dogmatisms in them, they may have specific ideologies that are,
So humans were writing them.
Yeah, humans were writing them because they're looking for something with a deeper value in life, a deeper understanding beyond just, cells evolving. You just happen to be here and everything just shuts off at the end.
Well, also, this is the thing that's pissing me off right now.
Tell me what's pissing you off.
Whenever we begin to not understanding where people were in their cultural context. So I guarantee if I write a 3,600 word article, I guarantee if I sit down on the computer right now and I wrote one about my spiritual awakening and what I guarantee you would find dogma in it if you read it.
Sure. And
you would be like, Jason, what did you mean by this? This sounds kind of dogmatic. And I would encourage anyone, if they wrote some type of myth or mythology or trying to explain a hero's journey, that's the state that we're in. You don't have perfection.
No, you don't.
And we're seeking perfection right now, and we're willing to not understand people. This cancel culture and everything that's going on right now. We're not understanding people for where they're at in their evolutionary process.
No, there's no respect for meeting them where they are. It's just said, let's just wipe out all the externalities, any of the flavors, the tastes of who you are and what you're going through, and just say, flat across the board.
Yeah, like you'll talk to somebody and you're like, well, you start talking about Hinduism, and then they're like, well, there's widow burning, and there's these gods are cruel and they're just killing babies and chopping their heads off.
Christian god that turns everybody to stone because you turn around and look at a burning city. You kidding?
Or we have genocide, and we have
come on,
they're killing gay people and everything else. Yeah. So but so you have to look at it, and I want something. I'm going to ask you this question. This is seriously like a question that I want to know. When we read sacred texts, what we deem sacred, what we not, but when we read these timeless sacred texts, like I look at Plato's Cave, and that's like last week I was reading that and then seeing like the puppets and then, the different layers of the cave. And I was just like, this is so deep.
It's very deep.
Yeah. So when you look at something like that, how do you understand it and read it without judgment?
Yeah, you can't really blow by it. Here's the best thing you do. You need to test what was just read. So before you bury it down into the subconscious of the mind, something that's been newly received in this short-term memory slot that you have before you pack it into long-term memory, and then it becomes a subconscious action.
Or a belief.
Or a belief, right? You need to test it. Okay, what I just read, how this is being defined of the world and the surroundings, I need to be objective. Is this accurate to what happens in my life? Is this what is accurate for things that aren't a part of my life? Does this also affect a tree? Does this affect the sky? Does this affect the foundation stones of life, atoms? Does it affect those things? Then that passage I have read, now I have a barometer for the truth that is in that. How I should actually be like, I know it is to be received from this sacred text and what should be omitted. Because the part that is driving me away that is non-truthful is a thing that can't be applied to everything.
Mm-hmm.
That truly doesn't stick with all. And you can recognize that if you pay attention, but you need to ruminate and test what you just read against everything else. I know you want to read something and go on to the next chapter, right? Or the next paragraph. It takes time.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you read it over and say, oh, that's going blah, blah, blah. And then you get pulled into that story without actually testing the pieces of that story. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
But you don't discount it all because
No. I'm not saying all is discounted. I'm saying you will find great things in there. Wisdom that is abundantly truthful, timeless. But you will also find other things that are not timeless, that do not apply, that are not applicable. But if you can recognize that, now you're reading properly.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're truly being effective in your learning and application of new knowledge. Now you're becoming wise.
Yeah, and he said, if all mythologies are origin stories in this sense, what are the origin stories suggested by psychology? This is really, really good. He said there's two original elements of human nature are explained in its lore. The story of personhood, that is what it means to be an individual and have an identity.
Yeah.
And secondly, the story of our physical constitution in the brain. So I want to get into personhood, being an individual and an identity, and then this collective consciousness, because we have, as we talked about in our last episode, the Vietnam, in Vietnam, the monk. We have to understand that in creation, there is individualism. You do have an identity.
There's a diversity of life.
It's not just this collective consciousness. Yes, there is that, but you're more than that.
Well, think about balance. If you need to have a soul identity, it has to be balanced by a collective identity.
Yes.
Okay? Think of everything struck in balance and equilibrium. So yes, you do have that collective lore of how you've defined yourself, that accumulated knowledge.
Right.
Held on some sort of specific subject. That's what lore is. But when you look at you with your identity, you are a part of creation in the collective sense, in its consciousness, in that initial thought. But you are very special and unique in the fact that you are an individual, but you share other characteristics of creation that is shared by the collective. So that's where that balance is struck.
Yeah, and I think the Constitution kind of gives a really good here in the United States, because you have this humanistic vision of individualism, but then you have this greater good of people that are being selfless, working together as a republic. And so that was we've come far from what the Constitution was originally geared for. And yeah, there's things wrong in it, whatever.
The U.S. is fascist right now.
But when we need to do a whole episode.
I know, I can't. I don't want to dive into it.
We need to have on the title, the United States is a fascist government.
Yeah.
We get so many views.
United Fascism of America.
Yeah, there we go. But there's still like this, you're an individual, succeed, do well, and at the same time, be selfless to others and serve.
Correct.
And Raw talks about that, what you said, the equilibrium, like become a better person, be a better you, and at the same time, take everything that you're learning and take that responsibility to teach others.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're elevating yourself, being the best person possible, that naturally helps other people that you interact with.
Yes.
Unless you're a hermit.
Yes. And he gets into pretty heavily about contemporary psychology. What is that? Contemporary psychology.
Contemporary psychology, all that's saying is that as psychology has evolved since its origins, okay? Contemporary psychology is the culmination of all those efforts, all those studies into what we currently view as psychology today.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just the path it's taken. Let's take what we have learned, and now here's the book on psychology. This is contemporary psychology. This is how we understand it now.
Yeah, I get that. And I want to get into, because he talks about this closer examination of the nature of belief. And he said this is crucial to understanding why we need, he says that's why we need mythology. And I agree with him 100%. I know you would too. He uses this belief is our guiding star. Believing in something is an act of commitment, guided by the emotions and solidified by habit and repetition.
Correct.
So he's a psychologist, so he's looking at it.
What are you committed to? You're not committed to yourself. You're not committed to your own thoughts and beliefs.
When you said that, I was actually thinking about that, and I was thinking of external things, not myself.
Not yourself. That's correct. That's what belief forces you to do. Never have any of your own internal self-reflection. I understand he thinks belief is important,
Right.
but belief actually strips you of your power. It strips you of your independence.
Yes.
You can have myth. Myth doesn't have to have belief. You don't have to believe in the myth. That's not the part that's important. What you need to do is test the myth. Like I said, you remember I said, look, how do you read this material? Don't just believe it for what it is. Test against it.
Well, this whole idea that, and he talks about it further, belief is built around emotions, which, so if it's built around emotions, then it's built around, there's a parable that Jesus talked about of this person building this big fancy house, on the sand, and then a storm hits and then it washes away. There's no foundation. So I get what he's saying there. Belief is built around emotions because it's fickle. Your beliefs are fickle if they're built around emotions.
And they change all the time. Think about emotions. They're severe ebb and flow.
And this is what you said, and I don't know this word, but he said it assuages the experience of doubt.
Yeah.
It assuages the experience of doubt, which gives rise to feelings of anxiety and insecurity. So he's actually, I think he's on par with you. He's talking about the negative parts of belief right now.
Yeah, he is. And he's also saying that belief helps people limit their anxiety, the intensity of unknowingness.
Well, it's a perfect example, salvation, whatever religion you're part of.
Yeah.
It eliminates the unknowingness of death. So if I have this belief that I'm going to go to heaven, or I have this belief that I'm going to, the Mormons believe they're going to populate a planet. And unfortunately, if you're a Mormon and you're a woman, you have to be celestially pregnant because it's your responsibility as a goddess to populate the whole planet.
Good luck.
Yeah, so you're going to be like an ant, queen ant, just giving birth all day long. So how chauvinistic is that?
It's completely chauvinistic. Is there any
no free will for the woman,
No.
and the woman is less than.
Yeah.
She doesn't get a rule or do any of that.
No, that's totally lame. They're just looking at her as an object.
So, but the people are basing their afterlife on these beliefs,
and that is a huge red flag. And I say that because if you're not thinking for yourself, the belief actually does not assuage you from fear. It actually makes you more fearful. If you don't know something, Jason, what are you going to do? Sit around and shake and get the cold sweats because you don't know and look to some outside force? Go figure it out. Think about it. But belief is not asking you to really consider it.
No.
If you're wondering about your death, look at everything around you. The idea of how a breath works, the exchange of these elements in the atmosphere going into your body, transmuting into something else. Think about
bloom and decay.
Decay. But what happens? The tree drops its leaves. But what does it do? It grows back every single time. What happens to a dying star? The mass contracts, pulls it into a black hole. That then becomes a new function of life in this universe.
Yeah, and he's going even more with this belief thing. He says, a thinker's duty to truth and away from error is itself a sort of effective push, like this push away from belief.
Yeah.
By demanding a resolution through securing an explanation. The process of doubt is a steadying and guiding factor for reflection. So doubt is a good thing, he's saying. Like doubting, he's like, you have to believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and you can't doubt that. If you doubt that, then you go to hell.
No, I'm going to doubt that.
Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Considering the myth also asks you, okay, let's look at this story. Go do some work. What about this story? Do you not think that aligns? Remember, you had asked me, how do you read this? How do you interpret this stuff? What about the stuff that doesn't work? The stuff that you're doubting, you're unsure of? You need to continue to go figure it out.
Yes.
Go find that truth.
Yeah, and he says, as we've learned from decision neuroscience, marketing, and behavioral economics, decision-making is itself subject to emotional factors, such as fear, hope, prejudice, and imitation.
I could have told you that.
Not to mention social pressures. So that's what creates beliefs.
Think about peer pressure. Oh, I need this car. Oh, should I be drinking right now? I'm underage. Everyone else is doing it.
There's a black and white old video of them going to college, and it's a marketing video, and it's on YouTube, and you guys can look this up. And it's peer pressure in the sense of, so they have like these 6 students all lined up on a table, and it's all black and white, and they're all dressed like they got their white, black, like 1950s,
Yeah.
60s. And they're showing these flashcards, and it's showing like 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines. So they have this kind of cool kid that looks like a James Dean.
Yeah.
And then they have the other kids there. And the James Dean kid's like, he's in on it. He's an actor. They don't know that. But they show up a card that says 3, and he says, that's a 5. And then everybody kind of like, you see everybody look, and then they show up another card, and he says, that's a 2. And it is a 2. And then he goes another one, and he says, it's just like a 1, and he says, that's a 2. And then the next guy to him starts agreeing with him because they're doing like a poll, And then next thing you know, the other guy starts agreeing with him.
But then that's belief.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's like belief just walked in the door and you became emotionally consumed with it. Why? Because you want to attach yourself, your idea, with that image of what you think you want to be, rather than deciding for yourself who you are and how you want to think.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
And then he gets into symbols, which we won't get into that. We've done those.
Plenty on symbols.
A pragmatic approach to belief is particularly apt for human sciences such as psychology, since the study of our own nature, as Friedrich Nietzsche, William Dilthey, Michel Foucault have pointed out, it's no disinterested foray. Contemporary society in particular, with its facts, experts, and overabundance of information, brings to the fore James's contention that when deciding between options on intellectual grounds is too complicated, it is our emotions that decide.
I've been saying this forever.
I know, yeah.
Listen, you can have all the logic in the world, but unless people understand their emotions, the emotions will be driving them.
Yes.
Unless people are thinking for themselves, they will be driven by belief and emotion. Is that clear? Simple enough.
And he says it this way: doubt is the ground for all belief.
Of course it is.
And belief in having attained the truth is a passionate affirmation of the solace of explanation.
Oh, gosh.
Isn't that great?
Wonderful.
What makes an explanation satisfying, keyword satisfying.
Because that's how you feel. You're like, oh, that's the answer.
Like a big, nice piece of chocolate. It's so satisfying.
I just had chocolate before this episode.
Is it accords with the social system in which one is embedded.
See?
Like we're talking about Germany.
Yeah. Well, think about the college or Germany.
Yeah.
Someone walks in. What's the social system of being in university? Oh, I want to be cool. I want to party with the cool kids.
Right.
I want to do this. Oh, wait a minute. He's a little against the grain, saying, school's all about, free thinking, do this. Well, oh, wait, that 2's a 5?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to be a free thinker too.
He gives an amazing illustration. He talks about Hindu society and this reinforcing relationships, and he talks about it between samsara, I think.
Yep.
The cycle of existence. So you have karma and a caste system.
Yeah.
So now we have this belief whereby one's position in society is explained by one's past lives.
Yeah.
So now you've created a caste system that I am far greater and I am less.
Because of how I've reincarnated.
And this was funny. I had an anthropologist on my podcast.
Yeah.
A shout out to ABQ Business Podcast if you want to get into business. But that's the only time I think I've ever shouted out my podcast.
It is. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to get a little bit of extra audience.
Maybe you get 2 extra downloads.
I love that, Alex. No, but what he was saying is he did a research study in India in this caste system.
Yeah.
And he was living there, and he's like, everybody lied about who they were always wanting to be one step higher, and they built this whole fake belief system. Like they were like, this relative is part of this relative.
Sure.
And so they always thought that no one wanted to admit that they were a lower class. But you got to look at it now we can look at it and say, well, that's kind of stupid. Yep. But it's actually based on their religious belief system.
Yeah. So what does that tell you about the religion? Junk.
Yes.
You're telling me, first of all, were you with me in the past life? No one has a fucking clue. So you can't. Oh my gosh. It's not for you to decide the hierarchy of where I sit in this world, okay? If you are a function of celestial fucking dust, so is everybody else. Yes. There's no hierarchy here, okay? Get it straight. Smack it out of your head. Your religion's lying to you. Your belief is putting you in this ridiculous state of putting other people down. Are you just your own pope? Is your family its own little Vatican? Dude, get over yourself.
He uses a perfect word for belief. The capacity to have beliefs is part of the suite. So it's like, think of a suite of primate abilities.
That's great.
Belief in primates. Primate abilities to cooperate, collaborate, commit, imagine, and develop an anesthetic sense that allows for awe and transcendence. The structures that make up our domesticated social world depend on the adoption of particular beliefs that enable basic understanding and practical heuristics.
Heuristics. Are you telling me my entire world that I'm living in is completely founded on belief? Are you telling me everything in society is on belief? Yeah, it is.
And you've been living in a fog.
And you've been living in a fucking fog the entire time. I'm walking around in a state of belief. I never thought for myself. My government tells me what to do all the time. My family tells me how to think.
what to do.
Yeah. Who to hate. You know, all that other stuff. I should eat at Chick-fil-A. Like, constantly. When are you thinking for yourself?
Let's bring up this. The other day, there was a shooting in Atlanta. Unfortunately, it was racially, but there was more to the story than just, there was a man that went into Asian massage parlors and shot a bunch of people. In different ones in Atlanta. I think he killed 8 total. I'm not for sure. That may be wrong, so don't quote me on that. Horrific. But when I was reading the interview on the police department, he was blaming it on his problem with sexuality. So he's turning around killing Asian women because he has an issue with sexuality and he thinks they're engaged in prostitution. So he has the ability to go in there. This is him acting as an individual, but this is what happened in the Catholic Church. This is what happened. We had the whole story. We had the whole episode a few episodes back about witches. Yeah. This is the same thing. I'm the judge. I'm the avenger.
Crusades.
Yeah.
It's the same thing over and over, but all of those are founded on belief.
Yes.
Every single one of them. That is the danger of belief. That's the danger of not thinking for yourself.
Yet he says, we inhabit an ambiguous system of symbols in which we're constantly challenged to find patterns to believe in. Isn't that great? That's what we're using, that symbol right there that you have up, that German, well, it's not a German symbol, but let's explain it. Let me grab it real quick. I want to show, I got to redeem myself. See, even just saying that.
Can you please redeem yourself from the nonsense you just created here? So I'm holding up a symbol here. And this comes from the Plejaren spirit teaching.
Yes.
It's not a German symbol. The books were written in German.
They were written in German. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, it's not a swastika or anything like that.
All our Deezer friends out there.
Yeah. And this is a symbol of responsibility. Okay? Self-responsibility.
Right.
The importance of this is that we try and look for these symbols and the application of them to our life to find understanding in it. But you don't need to believe in the symbols. You need to test them. Just because the peace sign is out there and someone told you it means peace, if you do the research, it's an elder Futhgark. It's an algiz. It's actually a symbol of death, and it was early adopted by specific Nazi cults.
Yes.
So don't walk around and tell me it's the peace symbol for someone else to define that it is peace for you, that you believe it defines peace.
Yeah, he says it's an imaginative society and infused with subjective emotional investment.
Yeah, subjective emotional investment. There's nothing objective. It lacks any truth.
In the 1960s, they've created this tribe around this peace symbol. We've got all these rock bands and we've got, psychedelic drugs going. And no one stopped to consider, like, if it's peace and love, man. No one stopped to consider the symbol, what it actually meant. I
know you were looking at anti-proliferation of nuclear weapons and creating peace, but you're going around spreading a symbol of death. Do you know how absolutely backwards and insane that is? Did anyone realize that? No, but you've walked around on belief. When you give someone the peace symbol with your hand, what do? Do it to me right now.
Yeah.
Wait, what direction are your fingers pointing?
Yeah.
Up.
Up.
Yeah, growth. See that? Peace, evolution, prosperity, growth, upward, zeal, all those things. Apex. All right? When I reverse it, do people walk around and go like peace? No, they don't.
Yeah.
Peace is up. But the symbol is the absolute opposite.
Yes, yeah.
Totally fucking absurd, right? The whole thing.
Well, it's a druid rune too. I have him in my rune set.
I know that. And when you walk around on a system of belief, you're not doing any thinking. Someone has told you how to think, how to live, how to act. And you never figure out for yourself what you should do. Belief stops evolution.
Yes.
In its tracks. Right in its tracks. It keeps you from moving into the future. All you do is reflect on the past. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. You can never live in the moment.
Yeah, and he says this in a secular age, Our beliefs concerning the nature of the mind can't be affirmed by any higher authority than our effective drive towards belief. The ancient experiences of possession by the gods of supernatural necessity resembles the non-rational affective tone of creative inspiration and its certainty involved in how we moderns come to adopt metaphysical beliefs.
That's interesting. And the word secular is also interesting.
But we're there. I mean, like our higher institutions, I don't mean to interrupt you, but our higher institutions, this is something that pisses me off. Another thing. I'm always pissed off, but
you're such an angry person, get a hold of yourself.
But it's a secular age, and there's this big push towards the rational mind and understanding and this judgmental dogma, that's out there. And it's almost created this far left religion because they have zero tolerance for you unless you absolutely believe 100% the way I do.
Yeah.
And then it's turtles all the way down. They just fall on top of each other. It's a belief system.
Yeah.
And when we look at this nature of the mind and we look at a higher authority, at least in myths, it brings you to that awe and inspiration of creation.
Yeah.
Like, when the Native Americans would look at the stars, it wasn't like, oh, that's just science, whatever. Alex is doing something wrong. There was like this. Yeah, I mean, I know that they, in and of the community, there was this oneness that was exhibited in their evolutionary process at that time.
That's gone today.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's completely not how would I,
it's like grandma's a Trump supporter. Can't talk to her ever again.
Yeah, come on.
She's a racist.
Yeah, I know.
And not everybody that was born probably from 1968 back.
Gentle with your blanket statement, but I get where you're going.
I had to put mine in the top part.
Yeah.
You know how I did the bias? Did you see that bias?
Yeah, very nice.
I was born in 1973, so I did 68 to kind of give me a little buffer. I should have said 1972 and beyond. Has dealt with racism.
Yeah.
And so understanding this... and racism is just a false belief system anyways.
Oh, it's
because when we look at creation, I want to get into it, but when we look at creation, there's literally our genes, and we talked about this before, our genes are whether you go to somebody in Africa, you go to somebody Australia, Japan, or United States or Canada, 99.9% of our genes is the same.
The smallest...
There's a 0.1.
Should I change the
focus on the 0.1?
Should I be fucking racist towards plants? Oh, you got a green leaf, you got a brown leaf. It's a plant, get over yourself. Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, you share 70% of the genetics that tree has too.
Yeah.
Wake up.
What is creation telling you?
Yeah, creation's smacking you in the face. And you just you drive the truth off to oblivion. Bye. I don't need to listen to you. I'm happier just being this racist, chauvinistic, gay-hating whatever with absolutely no thought for myself around why I'm even thinking that way.
Yeah, and he says, belief aims to benefit the believer. Don't you love that? That's what we want, though. We're so selfish and egotistical.
That's what makes it sell. Why do you think religions want you to believe? Mm-hmm. Because they're like, it's for your benefit. And then you feel so good.
And I can express it. This act of expression of this. Yeah, he said, believing in well-founded fictions or positive illusions is common. In fact, some truths are produced through the act of believing or making believe, such as fairy tales, Santa Claus, stuff like that, conspiracy theories and hoaxes. Beliefs about the mind, whether they're made in the laboratory or in popular psychology, rely on such well-intentioned fictions.
Fiction. Mm-hmm. So he also agrees that most of modern science is based on fiction, belief.
Yeah, and he gets into enlightenment, and we'll close in this. I think this is really good. He said, how did science become a source of meaning and significance? He said the Enlightenment was a shift towards freedom of judgment by liberating individuals from dogma.
Yeah, but now what? It's now become its own dogma.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Remember we did that study where the biologist went and talked to the physicist? Mm-hmm. And then they had that whole quantum physics about, how they actually looked at creation. It shows the variables of how things can move.
Yes.
And it was a quicker relative to the way that the movement patterns happened. I think, was it among like neurons or something? I don't remember exactly. And then the biologists wouldn't have anything to do with what the physicist said.
No.
Because they're so dogmatic in their belief system.
Yeah. Oh, this is how biologists think, and that's how a physicist thinks.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think that these things are interconnected? You don't think there's overlap in your fields? How ridiculous that you go to school to be a physicist. Your degree should be scientist, right? It should not just be physicist. If you do not look to all the aspects of creation, right?
Yes.
If you don't take on some sort of Renaissance man mindset and then have a specific focus on one thing, come on, it's ridiculous. You're just building dogmatism into everything that you do.
Yeah, and he talks about this now. And this is so beautiful. Listen to this. As the American philosopher Robert Pippin wrote in 1991, to be modern is to demand independence, a freedom from historical tradition and the power to rule one's own beliefs. In this way, modernity takes up the energy of religious belief and produces substitutes such as professional sports, Marxism, Leninism, social justice, and celebrity worship. We've replaced, we think we're so evolved, but we have the same belief systems, the same false belief systems that the people that you're accusing back in the 1920s had.
Yeah, you're just changing the flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing all over again.
Yes.
Yeah. So is anything really enlightened? No.
Mm-mm.
Is myth important? Yes. How you receive that myth is even more important. And stop believing in shit. Go think for yourself.
So how whenever we look at creation and we look at the creational laws that are out there, how do I take creational laws and then look at my belief systems? And I don't know if correct is the right word, but these creational laws are laws that were put into effect, and we can see the laws being performed
all the time. You can see them around constantly.
And so when I see a law, I look at that law, like when I see, the law of reciprocity or, and I look at that law and then I say, how can I, as an individual and as a collective, live that law?
Sure.
How can I learn from that law and how can I teach others that law?
Yeah.
How is that process with taking these laws of creation?
Well, the process works is like, you understand that there's truth, that these things are applied everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes it a law. They're tested for so long at such an infinite length of time that the same occurrence happens every single time. That's what makes it into a law, right? It's been time tested so much. So, okay, so if this thing is truly immutable, timeless, is what I am reading timeless? Is what I'm being told timeless? Is it how I'm walking and interacting with others around me a timeless way to act like that? Why is it that certain people are truly remembered? Because they did something timeless. That's what it is.
Yes.
The way you carry yourself in timelessness, carry yourself in creation. You will never be forgotten. You will never be a name that people don't remember. You will truly be that singular identity of who you are, but also very much a part of creation at the same time.
I love that. And if we encourage you to go to higherdensityliving.com, got some new information on the website. We're posting blog posts. We've got new shows going up. We've got the show notes on there, timestamps. We also, we talked about Tartle.co in the first part of the episode. Let's talk about our other sponsor.
Our other sponsor, Quality Mazda?
Yes.
Yeah, Quality Mazda of Albuquerque. They do a phenomenal job of the car buying experience. Nothing pushy, all education, and they meet you where you are when you are ready. And the best part, they'll deliver the car if you're anywhere in this general southwest area, Texas, Colorado. All you got to do is just go on and start your search. But they will meet you where you are. No pushy sales experience. It's all about educating you. You know what you want. Let's meet you there.
So QualityMazdaNM.com, Tartle.co, sign up, start getting paid for your data, donate to causes that like climate stability and human rights. And then make sure you go to higherdensityliving.com. And as always, if you're watching this on YouTube, push that little subscribe button to the far right.
Thank you.